In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. This is the word of the Lord.
Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everyone. As has been said already, today we're going to see that Jesus is the life giver. And we're going to hear that from three readings in John's Gospel. We just heard the first one just now from Martha and Sam. And we're going to be piecing together all these clues to show us what it means that Jesus is the life giver. And in the first reading we just had, we're going to hear that Jesus is a life giver who brings life in creation. So what we're going to do, we're going to work through what we've heard in the Bible and see how that's true. I'm going to read a little bit of it again. And when I say the word, John is actually talking about Jesus. Okay, so when you hear word, think Jesus. I'm going to read it again. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. So right at the beginning, John gives us a history lesson unlike any other. He goes back in time, okay? Before you were born, before your parents were born, before your great-great-great-grandparents were born, before the Romans were around, before the Egyptians were around, before the dinosaurs were around. In fact, even before time itself. Way, way, way back. And who do we find right at the beginning? We find Jesus. Jesus has always been with God the Father and God the Holy Spirit. There has never been a time where God hasn't been. There was nothing before God because there is no before God. Try to wrap your head around that. You can't, can you? But what does John tell us Jesus did? He says, through him, all things were made. Jesus, who was there before time, creates. He brought life. He created all things. All things. So, when you walk out of church today, I want you to look around, okay? And I want you to look up into the sky. Now, you might see the sun. You'll probably see the clouds. But have a look at them. Feel, probably, at this point, the patter of rain on your hands. Feel it, okay? You've got to feel it. Maybe stomp your feet on the ground as you go outside. Look at the trees. Hear, if you can, the birds, or it might be the wind that you hear. Feel that wind on your face. All these things, they've all been created by the life giver, Jesus. Without him, John says, nothing was made that has been made. In other words, without Jesus, we would have nothing. We'd have no food and drink. We'd have no family and friends. We'd have no life. Jesus is the life giver. And Jesus, the life giver, sustains. He continues to give life. We read here, in Jesus was life. He didn't just give us life and then leave us to it. That's not what Jesus does. No, he continues to provide for us. Look at all the signs that God has given you now to show us that he is the life giver. Okay? So, did you draw a breath? If you didn't draw a breath, that's dangerous. Draw a breath now. Breathe in. Go on. That breath was given to you by Jesus, the life giver. Does your heart still beat? Does it beat? You're very uncertain. I don't like this. Put your hand on your chest just to check. Feel your heart beating. Why is your heart beating? It's because Jesus, the life giver, is sustaining it. Can you hear with your ears what I'm saying right now? Can you hear me? Can you wave your arms in the air? Can you look around with your eyes at everyone else waving their arms in the air? can you use your brain and think, this is really weird, isn't it? All these things, our ears, our eyes, our arms, our minds, they are all there as signs that Jesus is the life giver and sustains us, provides for all of our life. Next time you look at your hands, just think, these hands are here because God has given them to me. They're here from Jesus, the life giver. Do you believe this? Do you have a mouth? Let's see your mouths moving. Some of you. Do you know why God has given you your mouth? God has given you your mouth to praise and thank him for all that he is and all that he has done for us. And we're going to do that now as we stand and sing. We must remember those actions. They're going to come up in a minute or so, okay? Now, when we confess our sin to God a few minutes ago, we were admitting something that is very, very sad. Although Jesus is our life giver, he's given us life and everything else good, we have rejected him. We've taken all of his gifts from him, but we said, I don't want you. I don't want to listen to you. I don't want to live for you. I'm going to go and do things my own way. And the Bible calls this sin. We've shut off our hearts and our lives. And this puts a barrier up between us and God. Now, a barrier is that and that, okay? That's what we're going to do for barrier. Barrier is that. Can you do barrier? We put a barrier up between us and God. There is no way to go back to him. We can no longer be friends. We can no longer enjoy that life that he offers. Because of our sin, there is no way back. Let's do a barrier again. There's no way back. It also leaves us blind, okay? Blind, we're going to do that. Okay? The truth, there's no truth. We can't get back to God even if we wanted to. We've shut our eyes to God and stopped our ears. We can maybe try to get back to him. Maybe we think if we do lots and lots of good things, then we can get back to being friends with God. Or if we stop doing all the bad things we're doing, maybe then we can be friends with God. But that's not true. We cannot know the truth about being friends with God. And it leaves us facing death. We're just going to do this for death, okay? It leaves us facing death. Without God, this side of the barrier, we face death. We reject the life giver, so in the end, we won't get life, but we will face punishment in eternal death, which is what the Bible calls hell. Because of our sin, there is no life. So, there is no way back to God. There is no truth of knowing how to get to God. And there is only death. There is no life. But that's not it. There's good news, which is what we heard in our song. Speaking to his disciples, Jesus said this, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Okay? Because of our sin, there is no way back. Except for Jesus Christ, the life giver. Jesus is the way. He removes that barrier between us and God. There is a way, he says. We can be friends with God again. Because of our sin, we can't know the truth about being friends with God. Apart from Jesus, the life giver. Because Jesus is the... Oh, no, that's wrong, isn't it? Jesus is the truth. He's the truth. Jesus is the truth. He gives us the knowledge of going back to God. He says, I know how to get back to God. Only I know. So listen to me. Listen to what I say. Listen to me as I guide you back to God. Jesus is the truth. He is the way. He is the truth. And he is the life. How is it possible? How can Jesus give us life? Well, Jesus, the life, gave up his life. And he died the death that we deserve for our sin when he died on the cross. And as he died our death, a great swap happened. Jesus gave us his life, that life that is enjoyed forever with God. Come to me, Jesus says, and I'll take all of your sin, all of the punishment that you deserve, all so that we can be friends with God. That's what Jesus does. Jesus is the way. Jesus is the, and Jesus is the, he says, no one comes to the Father except through me. So saying sorry to Jesus, putting our trust in him, following him is our only way to escape the death that we deserve. And it's the only way to the life that God has created us for. This full, true, joyful life with God. Do you believe this? Let me tell you about the greatest chocolate biscuit, okay? The greatest chocolate biscuit. Before I tell you about the greatest chocolate biscuit, let me just raise some objections or answer some objections that you're going to raise. Number one, yes, it is a chocolate biscuit. I've done my research. Number two, no, it isn't my opinion. It's fact. And number three, yes, your opinion is wrong. Here it is. Here's the best chocolate biscuit. The God bar. Good. Good. I'm pleased you agree. There is no tastier treat. If you've never had one, do yourself a favor this week, get a packet from Lidl, and you'll just devour them. You will, all in one sitting. There is only one thing wrong with the Gold Bar. Only one thing. Let me show you. It's smaller than my finger. It's tiny. Look at that. 2 bites, and it's gone. Like the 2 bites from me. Like the best things in life is over far too soon. Why can't it be longer? Children, I hope you've had a really wonderful half term. But I'm sorry to say it's gone. It's finished. It's over. School again tomorrow, back to early mornings, back to work, back to homework, back to tests. Half term is over far too soon. Can't it be longer? No, the parents say. Good things never last, do they? They're always far too short. Whether that's the holidays, whether that's the British summer, whether that's time with family, time with friends. We want the good things to carry on forever. Life is over so quickly. So what about this life that Jesus offers that we've just heard about? Because at the end of all our lives comes one thing: death. It's inescapable, it's unavoidable, and it is terribly, terribly sad. It cuts our lives short. Well, Jesus, the life giver, says something incredible. We heard it in our memory verse. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? On Sundays, we've been looking at the story of Lazarus. Now, Lazarus died from an illness, and he had been dead for 4 days. But Jesus, the life giver, came and said, Lazarus, come out. And out he walked. Jesus gave life to this dead man. Death was not the end for Lazarus. At the end of John's gospel, there is another death. It is the death of Jesus himself. He stayed dead in the tomb for 3 days. But do you know what happened afterwards? Death was not the end for Jesus. He rose again from the dead. You see, Jesus, the life giver, is the resurrection and the life. If we believe in him, although we will all die one day, Jesus promised it will not be the end. The life of following Jesus and being friends with God won't stop when we die. It's not cut short by death. Death was not the end, is not the end for those who follow Jesus, the life giver. Jesus said, "The one who believes in me will live even though they die." There is life beyond the grave for all those who follow Jesus. A life with no sin, a life with no suffering, a life with no sadness, a life where we can enjoy being friends with God. And unlike the best things in this life, it will never come to an end. Do you believe this?